Owen Thomas, who was at the game over the weekend and is currently still in Paris. Thank you so much for talking to us. Just explain what happened for you on Saturday when you arrived at the game.
Well, for me, I was lucky because I know Paris. I've lived in Paris for about 14 years now. So I knew how packed the transport was going to be getting to the match because rather ridiculously, there was a strike on the day of the game and there were only 2 out of 3 trains running to the match. So I took an alternative route and I took a metro and a bus to get there. And it all seemed very normal going to the match because we arrived very early, about 6 o'clock. We were one of the first people into the ground. And I had no idea, even until we saw the panels, that the kickoff had been delayed. I had no idea what was happening. I know that people around me, I was in a neutral area right next to the Liverpool fans, but a neutral area, there were Real Madrid fans, Liverpool fans, all mixed together, all very happy to be there, all getting on very well. Inside the ground, I didn't see much trouble and it looked full. So the idea that what UEFA, what the French minister is saying, that it was Liverpool fans' fault is completely against anything that I saw, because I was at the fan park before, no trouble. I got into the ground okay. Leaving the ground was an absolute nightmare. And for that, I completely blame the French authorities. And instead of just listening to the ministers, who obviously cannot, for political reasons, take responsibility for their actual lack of security that they offered to people. After the game, I saw, like at one point, a 7-year-old child stopped me and my brother from going in one direction because he said, "No, don't go that way because there's tear gas." And I saw clouds of tear gas after the game. I saw elderly people, obviously distressed. I saw people crying, people panicking, but generally, hats off to the crowds, because by that stage we were trapped. The foolish organisers, for whatever reason, locked all of the gates apart from one. So you had we couldn't find the exit. There was nobody after the match to show us where the exit was. Zero, and there were no signs. I speak French because I've been here for a long time, and I asked one guy who was right next to the stadium, how do we get out? And he didn't know how we got out, and he was not there to direct traffic. He sort of looked at me scared. So the police had closed, or the authorities had closed all of the gates apart from one. So if you imagine, there's a huge bottleneck of thousands of originally Liverpool fans, and then more and more Real Madrid fans, all coming in together and down this very dangerous bottleneck situation where, you could move at sort of a snail's pace, and there were people all around. And I'm personally quite an anxious person, and I don't like crowds like that. But I was using all my mentality to stop panicking. But there were some people who clearly couldn't handle it. We walked around the stadium to try and find another exit. There was nothing. We saw all of the gates locked. There was one ramp that didn't even have a gate, but that was blocked by about 20, I don't know if they were police or gendarmes, but they were in full riot gear, stopping anyone from going down this ramp. And it's like, for me, in a nutshell, the French security services, whoever they are, whether it's the CRS or whatever acronym you want to take, or the gendarmes, they had a responsibility to guarantee the safety of all of the fans present, and they absolutely botched it up. And it was a very, it was almost a traumatic experience. I praise the fans of both teams for staying relatively calm, for not reacting to the tear gas. There was pepper spray, as I said, children who had been tear gassed and pepper sprayed, and there was a lot of provocation from the gendarme, from the police, and it was, I don't know, I've got lots of stories, lots of images in my head that just make me think, I will think twice of ever going to, a major football match again, even if I got the ticket.
I've got to ask you, it sounds terrifying, and we've heard hundreds of reports from people that were in this situation. Nobody seems to escape from it. And we heard that the French sports minister has said about the mass gathering of British supporters without tickets or having fake tickets. This is all before the game. Now, a couple of questions for you. Firstly, were you aware of anybody when you went in that looked like they were trying to get in? And if so, who were they? And also, nobody has mentioned, I mean, you're the first to actually start talking about this, that it was just as bad after the game. So you can't be blaming anybody for having fake tickets when all this is going on afterwards, when the game's already finished.
Well, yeah, I mean, the French authorities were very quick to blame Liverpool fans without tickets for trying to get in. But I tell you, if it's Chelsea, if it's Manchester City, if it's Paris Saint-Germain, if it's any club and it's the major final of European competition, do you think there will be a small percentage of people who will try to sneak in? Of course there will be in any major event like that. So the point is they're supposed to stop these people. It's kind of inevitable.
Well, you said it yourself, they're there for safety. The reason they are there is for the safety of the fans. And from everything that we seem to have heard, and from what you're saying, Owen, is that it was completely the tail wagging the dog. They were the ones that were causing the problems.
Well, that was what I saw with my own eyes. There was also a situation outside the ground. Once we'd got through, it's difficult to describe it. It's like a narrow passageway where it was the only way to get out of the stadium. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of people trying to walk down it. It was like a snail's pace. A couple of people couldn't handle it and they started going the other way, which made it even more difficult. A couple of people jumped up on a sort of wall with a big drop next to it, but they just to walk along the wall because they couldn't handle being in the crowd. Once we got out of that space and we were actually out of the stadium complex, I tried to go right because there were no signs to tell the fans where to go, but I had to Google it, even though I've lived in Paris for a long time, because I didn't want to take the trains because I knew how dangerous they would be, probably. So I tried to take the metro, and again, people started running the other way towards the stadium, saying, don't go that way because there's tear gas, and they were tear gassing people on the way to the metro for no reason that I heard. I spoke to a policeman and I said, how can we get out of here? And he was like, go that way, pointing towards where the tear-gassed people were coming from. So I explained to him in French, no, but they're being gassed, so we can't go that way. So where can we go? And he didn't know. And this is the thing. It's like, I don't know who was in charge of training. I don't know who was in charge of, releasing the sort of, thuggish animal element of the riot police to sort of do what they want. I don't know who was in control, basically, because no one knew what was happening. No one was trained, it seemed. It was a scary situation.
It sounds a horrendous experience. It sounds that everybody's saying the same thing. This is a difficult one for you, but as far as UEFA are concerned, we really need UEFA to do something about this. And also we expect French authorities to say more about this as well, instead of pointing the finger, because it seems that everybody's pointing the finger at Liverpool fans, which certainly wasn't the case. What do you expect UEFA to do or say about it? Or what would you like to hear?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a culture of blame in Britain as well as in France. And, you do get that on two sides of a different coin. You get lots of people blaming each other. And you're right, the real thing is to actually find a solution. As I mentioned before, I really praise the fans of both teams, because by the time we got out, we were with the Real Madrid fans, who were last to leave, and there was no trouble.
Yep.
Zero. A lot of respect between the two teams, and that's really what prevented, because there wasn't a mass panic. There were some people who couldn't, who sort of, understandably were very, very shaken and quite visibly like panicking. But most people kept their head, kept calm, and just thought, right, we're going to have to just stay calm and get out of here. What I would like to see is not this blame, but an actual promise that the authorities will learn from this, because I think what happened, for me, in my opinion, just my opinion, is that there were people who were ducking under the barriers, not fake tickets, but people trying to get in who should have been stopped, who weren't stopped, who were ducking under barriers and jumping over barriers. And when it got to a point where the stadium had reached almost its capacity, they just locked the doors and said, OK, you know, like whoever's got tickets, whether they got tickets or not, no one else can come in. And it's like a very stupid way. There are so many mistakes.
And because France are hosting the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup next year, the Olympics the year after, so we would hope that we could identify these problems and solve them sharpish.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.